And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Professor and the Idiot. I'm Nick Wolfinger.
And I am Dalton Whitehead.
And we've had some great guests on the past couple of weeks. And we're going to have more guests in the following weeks. But ultimately, we'll run out of guests because there's only so many people in the world we can know who will agree to come on the show. So we need some weeks of just the two of us talking shit, at least until we're a huge media brand and people come begging to be on.
That will happen.
Yes.
Either we will die before it happens or it will happen.
That pretty much covers all possibilities.
Yep, that's right.
So what's on your mind, Dalton?
The short little thing to talk about, but it did just barely come up. Jussie Smollett getting all 16 felony counts dropped against him. So people are freaking out, and some think rightfully so, some say good. So I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
What's the freak out? I mean, what do they say? That he really should be punished and it's terrible he's getting off?
Yeah, a lot of people think he should be in jail. From what I'm seeing on Twitter. Now, when I say a lot, I don't know how many, but
right.
I mean, I've seen many people and many likes on social media about how this is basically an outrage and he should be behind bars.
As we talked about before, I think it is fucking terrible what he did. It's really by crying wolf, it'll cause people to take other real hate crimes less seriously. So the whole thing made me mad. So I don't know why the police dropped the charges, but perhaps they just didn't feel like they had enough evidence to proceed.
Well, the police, or the chief of police, is pissed off about it.
Okay, so the district attorney felt like there wasn't enough evidence to proceed.
Yeah, but the chief of police sure didn't think, or sure thought there was. So, I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted with it. I think it's fucked up what he did, but should he be locked in a cage for it? I'm not so sure.
I agree. I mean, he's a sick man. That's not not something a healthy person would do. Just for the record, I've never once faked a hate crime committed against me. And you?
No. I've never even I don't think I've ever known anybody that's even had a hate crime committed against them or faked a hate crime. So
I certainly know people who have been insulted or mocked for what they are, for being, for being Jewish, for being gay. I've certainly known it. I've seen it. It's ugly. Oh, yeah. It's ugly.
Is that a crime, or is
that
just
it's not a crime. Asshole? It's being an asshole. It's not a crime.
Yeah. I don't know.
I have no desires.
I think his punishment was the embarrassment, and everybody, he's going to carry that with him for the rest of his life. As long as he's in the public eye, people are always going to be like, "Oh, that's the guy, the hate crime guy, the MAGA guy."
I agree. I think that's sufficient punishment, even if he's not in the public eye. If he just tries to go get a job in an office. The odds are people are going to know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a huge... I guess I get why it's a big story, but I don't know. It's just drama, and the news loves drama.
Yep.
So,
yep.
I mean, they're in the business of it, but it's a giant story. And
yeah. I mean, the story has everything. He's African-American, he's gay, it has politics... That's something for everyone to take an opinion on.
Yeah. So definitely, I think the Ben Shapiro type crowd is a little upset he's not going to jail. I did see a lot of stuff online about Because, whenever there's like a case where like a white guy gets off easy or a black person gets an extreme charge in comparison to a white guy, or, people have to do comparisons of crimes and punishments among demographics and stuff. I'm not saying that's not legitimate, but a lot of people are saying like it's rich and famous privilege is like above everything.
Well, that's possible. I mean, I certainly think there's a lot of privilege that comes with being rich and famous, but it's always hard to know in any case whether this is rich and famous privilege or not.
Yeah,
in many cases, not all, but
yeah. In this case, I tend to think it is, especially when the chief of police in Chicago says he has no idea why all of those charges were dropped. Like, he got nothing. He got no punishment. Like, nothing. It went from, and I'm not saying he should have been he should have been punished, but it is very odd that, I mean, I don't even know how he could have had 16 felony charges. Like, I don't even know the 16 things that he could have done, but to go from that to nothing is very, very strange.
Perhaps the idea that he would be facing 16 felony counts was just a bit tenuous, a bit much, and a bit hard to substantiate. Sometimes cases indeed get lost in trial because the prosecutors got too greedy and tried to get more serious charges than was the case. I don't know if that dynamic ever affects charges being dropped before trials, but I know it can happen during trials.
Yeah, and especially if he indicated, hey, I'm going to hire some badass lawyers and I'm fighting this till the end. I kind of appreciate in this scenario the government going, you know what, it's not worth the money.
Yeah.
You're free to go. I'd be like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then waste millions of dollars on lawyers just to get him probation in the end, or something pretty mild. And I mean, I think it was a bad thing he did, but I don't see a clear-cut victim, so it's hard for me to want somebody to be punished when there's really no victim.
I agree. I mean, there is there's an abstract victim, and the abstract victim is anyone who really is the victim of a hate crime, among other things, right? You're right. There is no concrete specific victim here.
Yeah. Well, I wonder. Well, I did see his show Empire. His writers have a Twitter page, like a collective Twitter page. I don't know. It's kind of weird, and they tweeted out like, "See you guys on Wednesday." Winky face, like he's gonna be back on the show, and people are pretty pissed off about that. So,
yeah, I could see why.
I mean, I don't really think his job should be. I don't know. The whole like, you did something bad, so now you can't be employed with where you were because of something you did outside of your work. I hate that stuff.
Hollywood does have a long history of giving people second, third, fourth, fifth chances. I mean, look at Robert Downey Jr. and how much trouble he was in with the law.
Yeah, he was getting fucked up.
Yeah. There was a bit in The Simpsons where they were in Hollywood, and it shows Robert Downey Jr. in a shootout with the cops, and then Marge Simpson says, "Wait, I don't think they're filming a movie."
Jeez. So, I guess that wraps up Jussie Smollett.
Yeah. What else is on your mind?
The same thing that's on everybody's mind right now on this exploding Twitter, the Mueller report. Right. Me and Nick aren't sure about how it's pronounced. We've heard both.
No.
So, I'll go with Mueller, you go with Mueller, and then...
Okay, and I won't be consistent.
Okay, that's fine.
So we should keep in mind that all we have seen is a several-page summary from the Attorney General. The Attorney General, who is a Trump appointee, and the same Attorney General who last year voluntarily sent a 17-page legal opinion to the Department of Justice this wasn't solicited from him. He just sent it, arguing that the president cannot obstruct justice because it is the executive's prerogative to end investigations, to fire special counsels, and so forth. And so people thought he was just auditioning for a job. And so we should wait till we see the whole report, not just his summary.
Okay. Oh, so all that was handed in was a summary?
Yeah. All that we saw was Bob Barr, the Attorney General's summary of the report. That's it. And the summary of the report said, the Trump campaign did not collude with a foreign power to win the election in 2016. And it sort of was agnostic about whether Trump obstructed justice. They said there's no concrete proof that he did, but there isn't proof that he didn't either. And so again, that's Bob Barr's spin on what the report said.
So how would he have obstructed justice?
By firing Comey, right? By firing the director of the FBI is the clearest example.
So the investigation was underway when Comey was in the FBI?
Well, here's what happened with Comey. So right away, the Department of Justice started saying to Trump that Michael Flynn, who had been appointed as a national security advisor, had lied about his contacts with Russia. And he had given information to the vice president, and then the vice president, which was a bunch of bullshit, and then the vice president made a statement about it. So in effect, he had, deceived the vice president into lying. And so the entire Department of Justice said, this guy is compromised. He also had a contract, with the government of Turkey to do some kind of consulting that he didn't disclose. He had meetings with Russians, and he didn't disclose any of this. He's dirty.
What were the meetings about?
Who knows? I think he said, they were about, getting rid of the sanctions on Russia. But you don't, when you're not in the government, when you're just the president-elect and the national security advisor designate, the old president, Obama, is still in power. You don't start doing government business when you're not part of the government. So, pressure, evidence was presented to the president that by Comey, the director of the FBI, and others, that Flynn was dirty and he should fire him. But then Trump kept on requesting private meetings with Comey to say, hey, go easy on Flynn. Go easy on Flynn. Will you always do what I want? And Comey said, no, Mr. President, I'll only tell you the truth. And so in about April of 2016, Trump fired Comey. And it was highly unusual for a president to fire an FBI director. It only happened once before. The idea is that they serve 10-year sentences there, so they have some autonomy and they're not tainted by politics.
I thought he fired Comey because of something about the Steele dossier thing?
No, that's not why. I mean, certainly during the transition, when Comey and other government officials told Trump about the Steele dossier, Trump was not happy, as you might imagine.
So I've heard it like the way this political podcast was too. They talked about it as almost like Comey said, "Hey, I got this info. You don't want this released." Almost like a blackmail type thing.
No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit, serving the president. Why would the FBI director blackmail the president?
Keep him in line.
Besides, it was already, but by the time Trump fired Comey, the Steele dossier was already made public.
Oh, I don't know. See,
Yeah, that's bullshit.
I never started paying attention to any of this stuff, the investigation thing. I was like, because I try not to get caught up into the day-to-day politics.
Yeah.
It's more like I'll when the dust settles, that's when I'll like kind of look at it. So like people are talking about like Cohen going to jail and like saying all Mueller and like saying all these names. I'm like, who are these people?
Right.
Like I was not paying attention.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, and if you don't pay attention regularly, it's hard to keep track of who all the players are.
It's a good word. Who the players are. It's just a game.
It's not a game.
Kind of is. It's like Game of Thrones.
But it's a game that has real consequences.
Oh yeah, of course it does.
Yeah. And calling it a game trivializes it, makes it sound like it's frivolous, like it's not important.
No, I disagree. I mean, you called them players. Is it a sport?
Nice comeback, dude.
Good douche.
Dunk. Well, people call them players, and they speak of state actors and shit, which is, of course, is that talking a theater analogy? No, so I mean those are more.
I know, I'm just busting your balls.
My balls are sensitive.
As they should be. You got to take care of those things. You need them.
Yep. So that was, if you go back to Richard Nixon trying to cover up Watergate, one of the things he did that figured prominently into the allegations of obstruction against him was instruct the Attorney General to fire the special prosecutor. And the Attorney General said, I'm resigning, because he wouldn't do it. The second guy in line said, I won't do it either, and resigned. And finally, the third guy in the line fired him.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you don't fire people who are, investigating parts of the federal government.
So Comey was investigating Trump?
Comey wasn't explicitly investigating Trump. He was investigating members of the cabinet. And, he had a look at just the people around Trump. I mean, look how many of them have pleaded guilty and gone to jail.
But not for anything involving Russia, right?
Well,
and a lot of it have been tax stuff and stuff outside of Russia thing.
Well, he had 3 campaign chairs. The second one, Paul Manafort, was tax fraud and etc., but involved with payments for a Ukrainian politician. So it's not directly involved with Trump.
Okay,
but,
so that kind of sucks for them too. Yeah. They start investigating Trump, and then they find dirt stuff not relating to why they started the investigation, and people go to jail.
I don't know if the investigation originally was targeting Trump or just targeting contacts between Russian activity, Russian tampering into American politics. I mean, I think that's where it started.
So why did they start investigating Trump and his cabinet? Like, what sparked that?
What sparked it? All the contacts the cabinet had, especially during the before Trump became president, all the contacts they had with Russians. You know about the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016, right?
Was that with his son?
That was with his son and Jared Kushner. And his son, Don Jr., had email contacts and with a Russian agent, and said where they offered him dirt on Hillary, and Trump said, if that's what it is, I love it. I love it were the words used. And then they had a meeting in the Trump Tower with Russians. And so that's with Russian government agents in 2016. First of all, it's incredibly stupid, right? If you're going to do that, you don't meet right in Trump Tower. You don't send, you don't send the important people. You send third parties, right? You send third parties to see what the Russians want.
They was trying to find out stuff that was true about Hillary.
Yeah, they wanted dirt, right? They could use, but now it's this. According to what we know so far about the Mueller report, this didn't rise to any criminal charges against the participants at the meeting. For what but still, what the fuck, right? And then when this meeting came to light, Trump lied about it and said this is about convincing Russia to allow adoptions to America again.
What? Adoptions?
Right. So a few years ago, Russia's a poor country. Russia is Ghana with rockets, right? And so Russia was a frequent place that Americans who wanted to adopt kids would adopt kids for. And in all the
racists, they want those white kids.
Some of them, yeah. But anyhow, Russia's a big country with a lot of people. A lot of poor people. Russia's also a great place if you want an internet wife too.
Oh God!
Go to RussianBrides.com, and it's filled with pretty women who have college degrees.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Just looking for money.
Looking for a life in America. So anyhow, in some of the political drama between Russia and the United States over the last 2 years, around 2012 maybe, Putin said, I'm not going to let Americans adopt Russian kids anymore. And so anyhow, this was the lie that Trump told about the 2016 meeting.
Okay, that's suspicious.
Yes. Anyhow, there were ample grounds for suspicion, but we should also be, as I've seen people too, we should be ultimately be glad that an American president and his people didn't collude to a foreign power, at least based on what we know so far. That's good news. And it was an thorough investigation conducted by a respected figure in the person of Mueller or Mueller. Mueller?
Yeah, the Libertarian podcast I listen to, Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, for anybody wondering where I get most of my political info from, that and Nick's Twitter feed. They played a clip of Bill Maher, and he's like, well, the Mueller report is in, and it's not looking good, like as in, we didn't catch him.
Right.
So it's like, wow, you're mad that the president didn't commit treason basically, or whatever crime, you're mad about that? So,
well, there are so many other reasons why Trump is not a good president that I understand the desire for dirt on him, but ultimately we should, there is, it is good that there wasn't any collusion.
I mean, don't we want this guy to succeed? Don't we want him to evolve? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we want, yes. Yes. Right?
I feel like the left, some of the people on the left have fallen into this same trap or mindset that the right did when Obama was in office, that no matter what, he's bad. He's hopeless, he's bad, he's evil, he wants the downfall of the country. I'm seeing a lot of similar things. The left is some people on the left are viewing Trump, talking about Trump. It's like, man, you guys are no different than how the right acted. Some people on the right acted with Obama.
So I caught two things, right? If he actually enacted the occasions Trump has done things that I think are good decisions, or the administration has, like the new DeVos Title IX guidelines. Sure, I'm not afraid to say they did good. But I think any comparison of Trump to Obama is problematic. In fact, the comparison of Trump to virtually any other president is problematic. I think he's almost uniquely unfit for the office.
I don't think anybody's fit for that office.
Yeah, but that's not realistic, right? We're going to have presidents. What's the alternative?
I don't know. That's the problem with government and having populations this big. It's very difficult. It's problematic, and there's consequences to every action and policy.
That's true, but it was Churchill who said, Winston Churchill who said, democracy is the worst system there is. Unfortunately, it's also the best system there is. There is no better alternative for the prosperity of a country and its people than democracy, just as there's no better alternative as an economic system than capitalism.
Yeah. I guess one problem with democracy is 51% of the population can fuck over 49%
Yep.
of the other half.
Yep. And the Constitution a lot of the Constitution was written with that in mind. Many of the founding fathers were concerned about the prospects of mob rule.
Yeah. On a future episode, I would like to talk about the Electoral College. Just see what you think and kind of dive into that. Because, I don't know, you see, whoever side it is, whenever their person loses in the election, and it's like, if they won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College, it's like, we need to change that. Get rid of it.
Well, that's only one party wins elections by losing the popular vote. Right.
Well, so far, I mean, it could change.
I think the reasons for that are too deeply embedded. I think, small rural states will always be conservative states, because conservative people will always be rural.
Yeah, they're smarter. They stay out of the cities, the shithole cities.
Oh, fuck that, man. You ever lived out in the country?
Oh, yeah. Well, not lived, but I've spent plenty of time out in the country. It's great.
Yeah, but then try to live there and having to go half an hour to the store because, your wife needs a prescription, right?
That's fine. Now, when you get home, there's no traffic and no pollution, and there's no noise, and it's very low crime. And
why? So why don't you live out there?
Because I don't have the money to buy a house out there.
Why? It's a lot cheaper to live out there.
Dude, I don't even have a house here.
Yeah, but it's a lot. Yeah. Still.
I'm renting. Yeah. Amy's still got to go through school. And that's our plan, though. Well, not like a tiny town, but like kind of you said, like half hour to an hour outside of a city. But
you want to make that round trip 5 days a week to get to work?
No, I don't want to work in the city at all.
Why? There are not many jobs in the country.
Well, you can teach grappling anywhere in the world, Nick.
You can't. How are you going to teach grappling out in the country? No, there are not enough people.
I think you're envisioning me having like 10 neighbors total. Like, I want to be in the country, but I want to be close to a town where there's people.
Right.
Then that town is somewhat close to a city.
Then you're not in the country. You're in a suburb or an exurb.
No, it's hard to explain how I'm envisioning how I want to live, but I want to have some property so I can grow some vegetables, have some pigs so I can slaughter them to eat, some cows, all that stuff. No offense, I know you love Samson.
I love pork too, so it's okay. All right.
I hate traffic. I hate busy places. I hate lines. I hate traffic lights. I hate all that shit. I only do it because I have to have a job right now and don't have means to live the way I want to live yet, but it will happen.
You'll have no competition for me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the beautiful thing about America.
Yep.
You have choices.
Anyhow, I don't think we could have enough material to do a whole episode on the electrical college, as Homer Simpson calls it. But
well, maybe next episode we'll just cover it just briefly.
I mean, will now and for the foreseeable future always benefit the Republicans.
I don't know if I like that or dislike that. Trump is spending more money than any Democrat ever did, so I don't know how conservative he really is.
Oh, I argue that Republicans haven't been conservative for a long time.
Yeah, they love to pretend to be.
They're really not. I mean, you know who was conservative in many ways? Obama. Conservative means being a gradualist, taking small steps. Right?
Yeah.
So, for example, the Affordable Care Act was the most conservative route to universal coverage, right? It's certainly a lot more conservative than something like single payer or socialized medicine. It emphasized personal responsibility, namely you have to get insurance for yourself or you'll be taxed. You know, the plan originated with the Heritage Foundation, a conservative group. Anyhow, so I consider myself in some ways, I'm a Burkean liberal. I'm a gradualist. I think changes have to be, have to come slowly.
Yeah. Okay, I can respect that. I think I did. I don't know if it's true, but I swear I did read that more gun control laws have passed under Trump than Obama.
State or federal? That's all state. That's all state laws.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I saw the bump stock thing, and I don't know.
I don't even know if that was a law or just a rule.
Nick, you know I get most of my political info from memes. Like, for all the listeners listening, like, I try and keep up as best I can, but if you're at all politically educated or savvy, I'm sure you figured out by now, I'm a dumbass when it comes to this stuff.
You're not a fucking dumbass.
I work 40 to 40 plus hours a week doing construction. I got to grapple. I got to cook. I love cooking. I got to hang out with my lady. I don't have time for all this shit.
And I'm an effete intellectual who spends all his time soaking up information.
It's probably half the reason I love libertarianism, because it's like, just get rid of it. Fuck it.
But you need it. You need it.
I don't believe so. Not the way I want to live.
You need it. There are so many things. Go read that fucking book I sent you.
In that book, does it say, okay, I know it results in mass murder every now and then, but it's worth it?
What? It doesn't. You mean every now and then you mean the government declares a bullshit war? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's mass murder. And nobody goes to jail for it, like Vietnam. Like, think about how many people died.
Yeah.
It was based on bullshit, and the government just goes, sorry, I don't know, sorry, I guess. And one thing I do want to address is pertaining to Vietnam. People give Trump a lot of shit for dodging the draft, and it's like, well, wouldn't you, knowing what we know now? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't anybody dodge the draft?
Yeah, but
isn't that why Jimmy Carter pardoned them all?
He pardoned them all to try to heal an open wound in America. I don't know if he succeeded. I don't even know if it was the right thing to do. But knowing what we know now, yeah, but you didn't know that then.
Muhammad Ali did. You ever seen that speech?
Oh yeah, and I know he refused to go, and he didn't box for a few years because of it.
He said, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word.
Yep.
He's like, you want me to go over there and shoot those poor brown people? Just take me to jail. And he was right.
Yeah.
So if a boxer knew what was right,
yeah.
I think a lot of people knew what was right.
Is knowing. I think knowing whether it's right is a really complicated topic, because part of it is if you say I'm not going to go, I'm going to get a doctor's note to say I have bone spurs. That means some other guy is going to have to go.
Okay, so I don't.
Right.
So that's not worth my life. Like, if when it comes down to it, it's like, well, I'm not gonna go die for nothing just because I don't want to feel guilty because someone else will.
I don't know. I don't think that's nothing. I think the idea that we're going to save our lives by putting someone else at risk is a really deep, anguishing question.
Well, it depends on the circumstance.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give up my life for somebody if there's a just cause.
Right.
But when it's just government's either incompetence, corruption, greed, whatever the cause was, that's not worth my life. So I'm not going to partake in that.
Hard to see it at the time. At least in the mid-'60s, it was hard to see it. As time went on, easier to see it. Hey, let me tell you a story from my family history.
Okay.
That's relevant. My grandmother on my mother's side had several sisters, and these people were all born in the 1800s and are long since dead. But my two of the sisters had sons that were of age to serve in World War II. My cousin Alan went and fought in Europe and came back. I liked Alan. Just died about 6 years ago. He was a nice, interesting guy. He had a first cousin named David, and David's mother paid off a doctor to fix his physical so he wouldn't have to go overseas. And there was a big rift in the family between those two sisters that did that for a long time.
I think that's the right move. Should a government be able to force you to go to war?
What does citizenship mean if you're not willing to fight for your country?
What if the fight's bullshit? Which it has been multiple times in the past.
I can really think of twice it has been, two major occasions it has been bullshit, and a lot of times it hasn't been bullshit.
Well, I think that's up for debate. There's a history. I don't know if he's a professor. This guy Thaddeus Russell. I don't know if he's finished his book. I've listened to his podcast before. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast, but he is in the process, if not he's finished, of writing a book how it was actually a mistake for the U.S. to fight in World War II, and it actually probably cost more lives. I haven't read it. I don't know.
That's so fucking nuts. Now, you could make that case for World War One.
There you go.
Yeah, World War One. I have pondered that, but World War II absolutely was not a mistake to go fight.
Well, I haven't heard his argument, so I don't know. I'd love to hear it. But okay, there you go. World War One, Vietnam. I know there wasn't a draft, but Iraq.
Which Iraq? The first one or the second one?
Fuck, probably both.
No,
I haven't studied much about the first one, but didn't 500,000 kids starve to death?
No.
Because of the sanctions we put on Iraq.
So I think, well, that's not the same thing as going to... Let me back up a step before we start talking about original wars. Isn't the deal of being a citizen in a country and accepting the good things the country does for you, the protection of property rights, all the infrastructure and all the order it creates and all that, doesn't that come with an obligation? I feel like so after 9/11, after Pearl Harbor, I mean, look at how many people rushed to voluntarily sign up for the military. If it's just causing, there really is a just war, or like in a situation like that where it's like, hey,
we need to go defend ourselves or other people, because if those people get harmed, it's coming our way. We have to stop it now. I think most people would be like, all right, let's do it. But when you have to force your citizens to fight for the government, there's something about that. That seems like slavery.
So certainly mass volunteering did happen after Pearl Harbor, but it did not happen after 9/11, right? Not to certainly enlistments increased, but a huge mass of people didn't enlist enough. It did not trigger mass enlistments. Now we may be done. What's changed is we no longer have wars against, armies of our own size. There are no longer great power wars that require huge amounts of manpower. So unless that happens again, and I don't foresee there being a draft.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's like tell all the people that died in Vietnam, like, oh, it's your duty, you're a citizen. It's like, well, maybe. Right. Or you'll just die for basically nothing.
And in that case, it was terrible. But really, there's nothing like that in American history before. And something I've told you before on this pod is that before Vietnam and Watergate, the overwhelming majority of Americans trusted their government.
And look what happened.
Well,
look what happened.
No, you're putting the causality backwards, right?
Yeah, so they trusted them, so the government's like, good, we can get away with whatever we want.
It's good for people to trust their government. It produces.
Why?
It produces.
If you don't trust them, then they have to stay in line.
It produces engaged citizens who are willing to contribute for the greater good.
Well, you should have some level of distrust.
Well, we should have.
Isn't that why there's checks and balances and laws against the government? If you trusted them, then you wouldn't have to have any rules for them.
Critical scrutiny is not the same thing as distrust.
So, you trust people in power?
That's why they're in power.
What?
Yes.
So you trust Trump? He's in power.
No, I don't trust all of them.
So there you go. You can't trust them. They're pieces of shit.
You repeatedly cite single episodes to prove a rule.
No, it's just a great example. It's like, well, they're in power. You should trust them. Okay, what about the top guy right now? He's a liar and a piece of shit. So you can't trust him.
But that category, I wouldn't say categorically that means I can't trust anyone else in power.
No, it doesn't mean 100%, but you should have some level of distrust. That's why you have journalists and you have people checking in on things and fact checking and asking questions. There's a reason journalists ask questions. Is because we don't take your word for it.
Totally, right? But that's, you've sort of backed off to where, my position, right? You should have critical, as a citizen of a democracy, part of your obligation is critical scrutiny of what happens. But that's not the same thing as saying your default should be distrust.
I think that, to me, that's like the kind of the same thing. So if the Trump administration, whatever, their spokesperson comes out and says this happened, and some event happened, and they say these are the facts, this is what happened. Well, good journalists are gonna be like, well, we're gonna have to prove that. We're gonna have to look into that just to make sure. You do that because you don't trust them. Otherwise, you would just take their word for it. You just go, oh, that's what happened? Okay, well, then we'll just report that.
First of all, that's the job of journalists. I would say, instead, start from a neutral position. I think that's the best we can ask for post-Vietnam, post-Watergate, and soon, hopefully, post-Trump. Start from a neutral position and say, I hope this government serves our interest. I'm going to give them a chance. That's different.
Well,
that's different.
No, you can hope. Like, I do hope they do it, but I don't trust them. I hope they they're magical beings and they're flawless, but I don't trust them because for our history, people in power are pieces of shit.
But a lot of them haven't been pieces of shit.
Most people in power are pieces of shit.
That's not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
Why?
Look at all the wars and bullshit over. I think about how many people have died because of governments.
Let me back up a step. One common observation about politics in America is it's become nationalized. We always talk about the federal government and what they're doing, but a lot of government in this country, more people who are elected officials in this country are at the state and the local levels. They don't declare wars. Right. They don't declare wars. You can't level that criticism at them the same way, right? They're not going and killing millions of people or thousands of people in bullshit wars.
Well, that's kind of my point, that we should take away the power of the organizations that can do that stuff. Because they can't be trusted.
Who else is going to do it?
Who else is going to kill innocent people?
Who else is going to kill guilty people?
I don't know.
Yes, we should elect.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you give our government as much power as it has, right. I mean, you have to admit that innocent people are going to die a lot.
How can?
Because that's what's happened. I mean, you can't deny that. That's what's happened. The government has caused millions of people by now. It's hundreds of thousands, a million, however many people die because of their actions.
No, I would.
So would you say, well, that's just the cost? That's the collateral damage. You give the government enough power to keep it killed.
I would not approach that at such a broad level. I would not say by default, this is what the federal government does. Instead, I would support politicians who won't engage in bullshit wars. I would also support greater checks and balances on any one branches of the government's ability to make wars. You know, I'm thinking here of the War Powers Act, which was passed in the wake of Nixon and Watergate, which limited the president's ability to make war. I hope that after...
What are you talking about?
Okay, so...
Look at Bush and Obama and Trump. There's war all over. It's super easy, like that.
Do you know what the War Powers Act did?
Doesn't it mean Congress has to declare war? Or is that before?
No, that means a president, among other things, the part of it I know is passed in the late 70s, that a president can only commit troops for 60 days and afterwards he needs a congressional approval.
Okay. Well, that hasn't really stopped war, has it?
It wasn't supposed to stop all war. It was supposed to limit the ability of a rogue executive for making wars without constitutional checks.
Well, there's still tons of war going on, so that's cool.
I mean, it's certainly better.
That's my number one issue. Yeah. That's the number one thing that I just can't stand. The government takes our money and has wasted it killing innocent people when they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place, and people just shrug that off. I just can't get over that. It's just unacceptable for me. And people just like I forget his name, but one of President Bush, Secretary of Defense, he just came out with an article about how the whole Iraq war thing, and it's just like somebody had how this is why we came to the conclusions we did, and blah, 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 and just kind of excusing the whole thing. And somebody had the best comment on Twitter, and it's like, oh, well, I guess it's just one big oopsie. Nobody goes to jail. No, who goes to jail for starting a war that shouldn't have been started? Nobody. There's no punishment.
We're talking I think about 2 wars.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It is a huge fucking deal.
Nobody's gone to jail. Nobody gets punished for starting 2 wars that caused how many billions of dollars to be wasted? How many lives, most importantly, how many lives were ended because of that? And almost nobody just like freaks out and says, "What the fuck are you going to do?"
A lot of people freaked out.
But nothing happens. No, who goes to jail? Who goes to jail?
Okay.
Nobody.
That's
You
not,
just get away with it.
That's not the way it's not the way our government works.
That's a problem. They can start bullshit wars and nobody gets punished.
Really, what should happen is if they start bullshit wars, they should get voted out of office.
They should get killed. They should be hung. And then I bet politicians would think twice about, hey, maybe we should pump the brakes on sending troops over here to kill people. Because if it gets found out that this was unnecessary or we lied about the reasons to start this war, we're going to get killed. Because you should get the death penalty for that.
No one should get the death penalty.
Ever? No matter what?
Ever.
I disagree.
Well, one argument against it is that every other developed country has banned it. A second argument against it is that it's too expensive. It costs millions and millions of dollars to execute someone.
Not the way you need a 10-cent bullet.
Then we're talking about no due process.
You have the process. Yeah,
that costs millions of dollars.
Don't you have the same process to convict somebody to life in prison?
No, they don't get as many appeals because it's not final.
Why is it not final?
Because if someone's in prison, they can always get a new trial or be exonerated. If you execute them, you can't bring them back to life. Therefore,
some people shouldn't be.
Yeah, but you have to be sure of who the right ones are.
Let me be the decider. Is there video evidence? Yep. All right. Well, you did. That's how it works.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of video evidence of killing. All right, this is going downhill fast. Maybe we should bring it to a close.
Oh, I love it. Actually, we should bring it to a close because I got to go grab
All right. Okay, we have had a pod where we've talked about a bunch of bullshit. Thanks for hanging in there. We're going to have a fantastic guest talking about amazing shit next week.
Okay, what's your recommendation for the week? We haven't done it in a while. Give me anything.
My recommendation for a week is that you, the listener, should recommend something to the professor and the idiot.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I'm enjoying the book I'm reading at the moment, or one of the books I'm reading very much. It's called Bad Blood. It's about the Theranos lady, this company that...
Oh, yeah, I want to see that documentary.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
I want the book. The book is really fucking interesting. And I just think there's this sort of an interesting cultural moment between that and the Fire Festival guy. These are young people who somehow managed to get millions of dollars in contributions to their horseshit business endeavors.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, those guys are some talented ass grifters.
Oh, yeah, they're sociopaths.
Yeah. So the book Bad Blood is really good about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes.
Nice. I hope if there's an audio version, I might get that and listen to it while I'm at work. Well, all right. Is this the end of it, or is there going to be a part 2? We did an hour. It should be long enough.
There will always be a part 2.
You want to hear me yell about government? Listen to the next episodes.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Remember, if you like what you heard, give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And if you don't, fuck off to the place you came from.
Damn straight.
Oh, shit.